This is Darth Matthew, host of the Star Wars Generations and Superhero Ethics podcast, and I find your lack of membership disturbing. You can free yourself from the ads of those rebel scum by going to theethicalpanda.com and clicking join for $5 a month, $55 a year. No more ads, only the episodes, just as the Emperor intended.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Star Wars Generations podcast. It's Matthew, your host. Aaron can't be here, but back from Japan, back from documenting what's happening on the streets of Minnesota, back from so many things is Alex, our other co-host, who just hasn't been here for a little while. Alex, how are we doing today?
Better than I was a month ago.
Good, good.
Yeah, definitely refreshed from my trip to Japan and ready to talk about all things Star Wars.
Well, good, because we have such a happy, shiny, like clones just living their best lives kind of set of episodes today. Aaron and I have been talking about how we've been talking about some dark episodes, but today we're talking about some of the darkest episodes of the Clone Wars.
Facts.
And I think, therefore, some of the best, especially in getting into the issues that we've talked a lot about in terms of what is the problem with the Clone Wars and how is there major ethical issues about the life of the clones and the role of the Jedi, and how is this a part of the dark side growing in strength? And so we're going to get into that. And let me kind of just start with, Alex, if you don't mind, let me give a quick summary of the Umbaran arc. Please fill in with things. We're probably going to get the names of some of the individual clones doing what at various points wrong. Aaron would be the one to make sure we're totally on track with that. But you don't show up. Well,
I tried to do some quick checking on that. I'm just gonna get it. It's too many names going on.
Okay, I think we're gonna get the big ones right, though.
Yeah.
So we start by learning about this planet called Umbara, where the Republic needs to drive out the Separatists from this world, and the people there are the Shadow People. But pointedly, there are some droids, but mostly we are fighting other sentient beings, which we know hasn't happened much. We've talked about what that means. So Anakin is leading the clones, the 501st, on this planet, and then a new character shows up, a Jedi named Pong Krell. He's a basilisk. It's not a race that I think we've seen before. Kind of very tall, a lot taller than the clones. Kind of amphibian, frog-like, lizard-like looking guy, but clearly a Jedi and a general. And he says, Anakin, you are needed back at headquarters. The Jedi in Coruscant need to talk to you. I'm taking over this mission. And Anakin is obviously hesitant about that, but agrees to go forward with it. Some of the troopers are a little hesitant, but Rex says, look, we're the Jedi, and they're going to command us, and it's going to be great. But it quickly turns out to not be so great. Pong definitely wants to be a lot harsher on the clones than Anakin was. For one thing, he almost never uses their names. He uses their designations. So, like, everyone calls fives, but he says CT 5555.
Which just seems insane to me because, like, who wants to remember all of those numbers?
Right? It's just a power move, though, because he clearly thinks that the clones are inferior. He thinks that they're being spoiled too much. He wants to treat them like droids, basically, in a lot of ways. And so he starts ordering them into battle in ways that are not they're much more straightforward. They're not as sneaky. And he sees the clones clearly as an expendable resource and is willing to, if 20% of them die accomplishing the mission, and there's some other much harder way that only 10% of them would die, well, 20% is fine. And very much unlike Anakin, and to the consternation of the clones, he doesn't lead from ahead. He's not using his Jedi powers on the battlefield. He is staying back to observe because, as he pretty clearly says, he is not expendable the way they are. Mm-hmm. So they have some difficult fights. The fighting is particularly brutal against the Shadow People of Umbara, and we'll get into that and all kind of what that says. I think very significantly, and we'll talk about why in a bit, we never meet like the people who they're there to rescue or like who are it's just, it really feels like an invasion and feels like the people here are, it's hard. We're being told the Republic are the good guys, but it doesn't really seem clearly that way. Except for the fact that the Umbarans are made to kind of look scary and alien and different. And so, I guess it's okay.
Star Wars continues to relate to the modern day, Matthew.
Yep. So a couple of the clones are pushing back against this, though, especially Fives and another one named Hardcase. And there's this other guy, very helpfully named Dogma, who clearly just wants to, follow the exact letter of the law and the the Jedi are always right. The general is always right. We have to follow orders. And Rex seems to be unhappy, but also trying to kind of stay above it. And there starts to be little acts of rebellion against Krell. There's this possibility to steal some fighter ships from the Umbarans and use them against them, particularly against these tanks that are really hard to destroy. And at first they have a couple, and they involve clones. I'm sorry. And so at one point the clones steal some of them and use them to get back, and Krell is definitely not impressed. And then for later part of the mission, Krell wants them to make a direct assault. They suggest, no, we can use these fighters to really do a lot of damage. Krell specifically forbids it. There's a moment where Hardcase and Fives and one other whose name I don't recall it a second. Jesse, thank you. Yeah, Jesse's also a key part of it. They steal those fighters. They take those fighters to have a big attack, and Dogma and one other clone want to turn them in. Mm-hmm. And Rex is clearly upset that they're doing this. He's like, what are you guys doing? This is what you should be doing. But he steps aside to let them go. And then when Dogma is going to go talk to the general and turn them in, Rex is like, no, you decided to go back. He actually asks Dogma to tell it to him, and he'll tell it to the general. And Dogma says, I guess I don't have to do it, and goes back. The mission is successful. They win the battle, but Krell is still very upset that they disobeyed his orders, and he subjects the clones to summary execution, which I have real trouble thinking would happen in a republic with the Jedi so involved, but that's the law as they claim it. Maybe it's special for clones.
Or Krell could have made it up.
No, I mean, the rest of them seem to act as though like that is a fair reading.
Yeah, that's fair. But the clones did follow orders.
But certainly Krell's not saying let's wait till we're back on Coruscant and we'll go through a whole process. He's saying, look, I'm going to do this right now. And this is when Rex starts to really push back against him. Fives and Hardcase. Oh, and I'm sorry. So during that mission also, Hardcase, who's called that because he's always kind of trying to jump into trouble. He's always kind of jumping into combat and finding the biggest explosions. They're trapped, and he sacrifices himself to take out the reactor to destroy the ship that they're trying to destroy. Hence big mission success. So, but Jesse and Fives are back. They're going to get executed, and Rex is arguing against it. But eventually Rex is okay. Like, surprisingly, and we'll talk about why, Rex kind of lets it go forward. Dogma is the one giving the orders, but there's a group of soldiers behind him. Dogma says, okay, ready, aim, fire. And then when he shoots, nothing happens because the soldiers all intentionally miss. Dogma gets upset, and then Rex kind of jumps in and is like, no, this is not going to work. We can't do it this way. And then there's another attack. And so Krell is all like, well, we'll finish this later. Krell then orders the troopers to go on one more attack run, which they don't really understand why they're going on it. And on that attack run, it turns out that they're actually attacking other clones. And a really kind of heartbreaking scene. Rex realizes he's shooting other clones. He pulls off his helmet. He pulls off their helmet, trying to show to both sides, like, hey, we're clones. We're not supposed to be fighting each other.
And Krell specifically said to the troopers, the enemy is disguising themselves as clones. And so he pulled both sides to pit them against each other intentionally, basically.
Yeah, exactly. And at this point, we find out that Krell is not only just a bad general, not only just a bloodthirsty general, and one who doesn't treat the clones the way they should, but is full on gone to the dark side, is intentionally sabotaging these things because he has foreseen that the Republic is going to fall. He has foreseen that there's a new order rising, and he wants to make himself a part of that. And so he plans to go be Dooku's next apprentice. This is obviously something the clones are all horrified by. They try to fight him. He kills a bunch of them. They manage to stun him. And then they're going to execute him. Rex is going to shoot him. Rex can't bring himself to do it. And Dogma does it. Mm-hmm. And because Dogma is just so horrified by it's that kind of like he was so brittle that when there's some pressure, he breaks. So, yeah, a nice kind of light story about the clones. What'd you think?
Insane. But real quick, something I just want to put up before we get into the weeds of it, Matthews. I just realized today when I looked up the basilisk, we have seen one other of this species in all of Star Wars, and it is fucking Dexter, the guy that runs the freaking
God, you're
cafe
right.
diner in episode 2. They're so polar opposites that I couldn't even imagine it. And but that is where the species comes from.
I think that's part of the point, is because we have such this like lovable, huggable, aw shucks kind of guy who's the other one from this race, that we do give Krell a little more credit before it goes too far.
Yeah, so just want to point that out. But to the point of the episodes, I remember as a kid watching these, and I was like, this is like disturbing. Like, I almost didn't want to watch it as a kid because it was like so intense. But as I got older, I was like, wait, this is like one of the best arcs in the entire series, because it really gets to the heart of this war. Why are we fighting this war? I mean, first of all, in my opinion, like, these shadow soldiers very much represent like the people of like, countries in the world that have resources that bigger countries want. We're kind of seeing something similar to what's happening now. Like, the U.S. wants oil reserves, so they've attacked Venezuela and Iran and different places. And it's like the Republic is supposed to be the good guys, quotes, but they are really doing this for their own needs. I mean, that's why the Umbarans are fighting against the clones. The Umbarans don't want to be part of the Republic, but the Republic's like, you have no choice. We need you for our supply route or whatever. Yeah. So it's very like unsettling just from the get-go. And then like, I think it was very intelligent to start the 3 episodes off with Anakin as the Jedi in charge, because first of all, we all know the 501st, but Anakin is the most compassionate of all of the generals when it comes to Jedi. So you really see like how the clones can be treated at their best. And then Krell is just polar opposite. And it just gets worse and worse. And like, you keep trying to like justify it, but every order just seems even crazier and crazier. And at one point, Krell at the end even remarks, he goes, you guys all went along with it. Like, I kept getting more and more intense. You just kept going with it. And I relied on people like you, Dogma, to just follow my orders blindly. And again, it just speaks to like the insane order that like Palpatine has kind of created behind the scenes to orchestrate this war, where like his clones are following orders blindly, and the Jedi are forced in this role of like, every choice they make, it affects the clones. It speaks to like almost every ethical issue within the war, all in 3 episodes. I think it's just spectacular.
You're right. And so many of them, as we often talk about, are issues that are very real to life. You talked about sort of why they're there. I think this one, especially with the attack dropships coming in with the open doors that look so much like the helicopters that we've seen in so many Vietnam newsreels and movies and stuff. The fact that it's all fought at night. One thing I noticed is, and it switches sometimes, but normally when it comes to laser blasts, one side is firing green and one side is firing red.
I haven't noticed that, yeah.
And especially in space, often it's like the rebels firing red. The Umbarans fire blue. And so it's green and blue shooting against each other without red anywhere, which to me also kind of was like, no, there's no clear. The Umbarans don't want to do what the Republic wants, but like, they're not clearly evil. They're not dark side in that kind of a way. And it's the Republic general who's leaning towards the dark side.
And it's very clear, like, the Umbarans use, creatures on the planet. Like, it's very clear they're like in touch with the nature and the animals of the planet. Like, it seems like they just care about where they live, and these are invaders in their world. And I don't know if they care if it's separatist or Republic, but they're like, leave us the hell alone.
Yeah. No, yeah, they basically have Sarlaccs for all intents and purposes. It's probably a little bit different than, because it's more of a jungle creature than a desert creature.
And that big worm thing they used at one point.
Well, that was a machine.
That centipede thing was a machine?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't think I ever processed that.
Yeah. But no, there's definitely a lot. I think there's there might have been like a worm-like beast as well, but definitely the Sarlacc, the jungle Sarlaccs, whatever those are called.
That gets Krell at the end.
Yeah. And so I think there's a lot of really cool. Wait, so why did I think Dogma shot him? No, yeah, that's right. Because
Dogma does shoot him. Shoot him.
They use that to help capture
the
Krell.
Sarlacc, like, captures him, kind of knocks him out in the field, and then they bring him back and put him in the prison cell, and that's where Dogma shoots him.
Right, exactly.
Also, Dogma, very on the nose, but as a kid, I didn't know any better. I was like, Dogma, funny name. Yeah. And then you're an adult, and you're like, oh my god, way to hit it over the head there, bud. Same thing as Darth Vader, Dark Father. Come on now.
I mean, they kind of all are. Like,
I know.
Hard Case and
Cut Up.
Honestly,
Heavy.
What is Rex? Rex is a wonderful, like, he is loyal, he is supportive, he is always at his master's side.
A dog.
He's such a good boy,
Oh my god.
But anyway, so yeah, and I think part of what I love about it is we've talked before about how one of Anakin's problems sometimes is that he's too sentimental, he's too connected to the clones, and how that gets him into trouble, because as a leader, as a general, sometimes you have to make hard choices, and that's one of the terrible things about war. And that's one reason why I think war is pretty stupid, but it's a part of it. And I think at first, before we learn about the dark side thing, and that it's somewhat intentional, Krell is a great representative of the other side, of the I just have to win the war, and so I'm willing to. I'm going to look at my army as though they're pieces on a game board, and I'm not going to think about them as people. And I'm going to call them clones to kind of separate them from people in a lot of ways. And to me, it's really chilling of a look at like if a lot of what this whole show is about is how this war affected the Jedi and drove the Jedi to a place where they couldn't see the dark side rising. Krell's the extreme example, but he's definitely an example of that.
Agreed. And like, I mean, at the end of the day, like if Krell did foresee the fall of the Jedi, I mean, he was right.
Yeah.
And obviously he takes it to an extreme, and like is trying to make a point. I think like it's evil, but he's trying to make a point of like, you all will follow orders blindly, and like that could be used against you, and it's almost like very dark foreshadowing. And again, I understand there's more in play with the the chips in their head and everything, but there's dark foreshadowing to like how the war devolves and eventually how the Jedi are all wiped out.
Right. And at this point, the chips had not yet been put in canon.
Yeah, correct. So at this point, you're like, oh, they would just follow any order blindly. No wonder.
Yeah. So yeah, it is, I think, a good foreshadowing of that. This will get into my biggest complaint about these episodes. And I think you and I have talked about it a little bit on something else, but I want to make my case and hear you out, and you're very open to disagreeing. And it's that I think these episodes have the same problem that Attack of the Clones does, or one of the problems Attack of the Clones does, which is that it comes right up to the edge of a really brilliant character moment, and then it gets scared and it backs off. And because to me, the interesting story is always going to be the person who serves the dark side without realizing it. The person who has allowed their fear to turn to hate, their hate to turn their anger to turn to hate to lead to suffering, etc. And so, in the same way that I was really disappointed when Dooku turned out to be working with Sidious the whole time, and I think that story is so much better if Dooku honestly believes everything he's saying. But the Jedi can't see that, and can't see that he's making legitimate complaints, and so go to war with him, and that drives him into the arms of Sidious. I in the same way here, I wanted Krell to be someone who genuinely believes in the Jedi, genuinely wants the war to end, and has come to believe, because of the way that war corrupts people, and that the power of being a general leads people towards the dark side. It's why Jedi shouldn't be generals. That's where he is, and that he's falling to the dark side, and that maybe even like by the last episode, he is kind of going like, screw it, I should just go find Dooku or whatever. But the fact that we get this reveal of like, no, all along he's never been trying to actually win the war. He's always been trying to screw with the clones as a way to sort of buy his way into the loyalty of Dooku and to show just how evil McEvil Pants he is. I just thought that was really disappointing and kind of chickening out.
I get you. And I mean, I think that like I'm in a similar, but I don't think I'm as harsh on it, but I'm similar. It did feel like, they were really making this point of like, the Jedi, some Jedi are just getting disillusioned, and they are seeing the things that are wrong. And like to a point, like Krell has a point until he was like, having troops kill each other and like they're doing all this shit just to like, for his own sick pleasure. To me, it feels like, we almost call it Krell, or they introduced a Krell that's like a little too far down the rabbit hole, where it's like, I would be more interested in Krell a year ago when he's just starting to get disillusioned. And it feels like at this point, he's disillusioned, and he's like now power hungry, and like has kind of given himself up a lot more to the dark side. And it kind of keeps that clean cut. Like there's no middle area where like there obviously very clearly is a middle area. And like, but you're right, like with characters like Obi-Wan, like he has reservations, but always ends up with just sticking to the one good side. And Luke has reservations, and I think Luke's the closest we get to gray, but even him, it's like it ends up being pretty clear. Like there's never do we really get a true grayness, except for maybe Ahsoka.
I think the Acolyte gives us a lot of that.
That's actually a good point. Yeah, that's true.
And I think you're right. Like I've always said that part of why I like Asajj Ventress and Ahsoka together is I feel like they're both coming into the gray from the light and the dark sides, and they're kind of meeting in the mirror.
Yeah, and I think the gray is just such an interesting realm to like dive into. But I don't want to digress too much. I agree, though. I think that like I think that like it almost like, you know, it's like when the clones are killing each other, it is a powerful moment for me because it's like, Jesus Christ, like this is so freaking dark. This is a kid show, and this is so dark, and this is like the worst nightmare of any person to like be killing your own friends, your own brothers, and you're doing it because you followed orders blindly, and it like kind of wakes up some of the main character clones to like what's going on, and is, you know, I think big in Grex's character development. But I also think that like that order doesn't come from a person who's just kind of disillusioned or wants to make a point. That's from someone who is like you are all beneath me. You are nothing. Like I am more powerful. I should be more powerful. And it just was it was like went from gray dark side ish to like true Sith. And
I think once that happens, clearly he is no longer someone who means well but is embracing terrible ends, and that has corrupted him.
I agree.
And I will say, the first time I watched this to record on it, I'd forgotten about the ending, and I got really upset about it. This time when I watched, I still remembered that this was the ending, and I think I was able to enjoy it a lot more. Like I still think, even with that ending, this is still a fantastic set of episodes that raises some fantastic questions. I just wish they'd been willing to like just go that extra step.
Yeah, and I mean, I think again, like, you know, the episodes have a ton of going for them, but I agree that I think they like that one extra step would have been really nice, and especially because like I don't necessarily know if you need it. Again, like it was very powerful, very shocking. Probably one of the most shocking moments in all of the Clone Wars. Yeah. But before that, you know, like the clones standing up for themselves, starting to learn how to think freely, like fighting back against orders and like fighting within themselves. Like I don't know, like I think that like it kind of got the point across that like when we get to the point where like, you know, this, you know, Krell is getting to this point, like it's almost like we are like really past the line. When we kind of got the general vibe and sense of this even before that happened. And like we already saw Hardcase sacrifice himself, and like there was already death. And you know, I think if the culmination was like the clones are going to execute their brothers and choose not to, and then choose to go fight Krell right then and there, I would have said, great, I don't miss anything. I'm not missing anything in this episode. Like,
I think so.
This felt like it was added for shock value. And again, it did shock me. It is powerful. I do like that it's in there, but it in the grand scheme of like the overall narrative, I could do without it.
So let's talk about some of the individual clones and the journeys they go through. Because I think in many ways, one of the most shocking is Rex. Because Rex, I think, has a very interesting place in this, where he wants to continue believing in the chain of command and all that, while still questioning Krell. And so a couple times he's like, I'm going to show Krell public support, and then in private, I'm going to question him and try to push him somewhat. And clearly he is very troubled by what Krell is doing. He doesn't think this, you know, when it comes to that, he doesn't think the soldier should be executed. But he is standing next to Dogma, and I kept waiting for him to jump in and stop, but Dogma says, ready, aim, fire. Or I think he just says fire. And Rex doesn't do anything. And I'm wondering, I think the easy way out is if we believe that Rex knew that none of those soldiers were going to actually take the shot. But I feel like that's very hard to claim, that every single one of them, without talking about it in advance, or at least they did, it was totally off camera, that they'd all agree to do that.
Right.
And so I think...
And Krell was watching from the tower too. So like Rex has the ability to stop it on the ground in that moment. Yeah.
So I kind of feel like Rex chose, not because he was happy about it, but he was going to let it happen.
Good soldiers follow orders.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think that like that's why this is such like a big series for Rex, because like I think before this he does follow orders because, you know, whether it's because he trusted Anakin so much and Anakin was always looking out for the best, was looking out for his troops and like their best interests, or whether Rex is just like, at the end of the day, I'm a soldier and I will follow orders. It felt like after that though, like episodes involve Rex you see, like, there's Rex before this where he's very like, follow orders. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And then like he starts to question more, and like he seems a little more personable, and like you really get to know him better because you're like, Rex is not willing to just like follow them blindly, because when you follow orders blindly, this is what happens.
Yeah.
And I think it's what makes him so compelling as a character. But I think this was a major turning point for him because he did make the wrong choice here. And like he made his big speech of, no, this is wrong. After, the shots were missed. Like, the two clones, was it Jesse and Fives were going to get executed?
I believe so, yeah. Because Hardcase had died already.
Jesse's his best friend. Is Rex's best friend. And like, like the two of them are like, this is wrong. Like, you need to not do this. And Rex is just going to let his best friend die. It just, I don't know, it just didn't sit right with me. And I think that Rex learned from that and like probably had to take a hard look in the mirror, and it made him a better person and soldier, I think, moving forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think here's where, and I understand why it happened because of a lot of writing things and just the way the production happened. But here's where I think I really wish that they had released these episodes in chronological order, because I think it would be really and I know you can go back and watch, like if you watch in the right order, you can jump around chronologically. And they had sketched it out, but I think it's hard to really know, like, okay, this is just how hard we're going to go in this episode. And so 2 years earlier, we're going to write Rex in the time after Umbara and show how different he is.
Mm-hmm.
But I definitely think you're right that we get to more of that from Rex and in later episodes and maybe even some episodes that came before this, but later chronologically, because you're right. I think this has to be a real kind of turning point. And for me, more than anything, this is a moment about loyalty towards individuals versus towards institutions, because Anakin has, no matter what else you say about him, he has earned the loyalty of the clones. He is he's always willing to take whatever risks he asks of them. He's always leading from the front. He always says, I'm going to listen to you. I will let you try and talk me out of things. And he always says, if I can, I'm going to only put you in the danger that I absolutely have to. And I think there's some extent to which Rex, not having experienced any other Jedi really, except sort of Ahsoka, who's kind of the same, would say, okay, that's what I expect of a Jedi.
Yeah.
And
even Obi-Wan, like very like, doesn't care as much as Anakin, but very much is like, I am a good person. I would do what I can to protect you.
Right. Yeah. And I think like some of the Jedi are a little meaner and some of the Jedi aren't as personable to them, but none of them have been quite this bad.
Yeah.
But I think for Rex, it's especially with Anakin. And I think there's that sense of, well, Anakin always knew what was right, even if sometimes I didn't see it. So I'm going to keep trusting this guy. I'm going to keep giving him the benefit of the doubt. And I think in many ways, that's I wish Rex realized that before the execution. I think it's a little damning of him. Not that it means I hate his character, but I think it's an important thing to remember is that he didn't find his line before the execution, but that's the character who Rex is. And it really speaks to how indoctrinated he is. And, there's one point where he says like, no, we're supposed to be loyal towards the general. That's what I believe.
Mm-hmm.
I believe in this general. And I think it's Fives, it might be Jesse or Hardcase, but one of them says to him, is that what you believe? Or is that what you've been genetically programmed to think?
Which really starts questioning more and more. I mean, Rex has multiple, Rex had met with, I can't remember his name now, but the clone on that farm who had chosen to defect and leave. And like, I think Rex has quite a few instances where he meets situations where like it makes him question his own dogma.
Yeah.
Like his own personal code and his own like what are we fighting this war for? What is the point of this? Like between like the death of Fives and the farm and this Umbar incident, like it and that's it kind of masterfully shows how Rex specifically was, convinced to change his mind and like really fight back against what the Republic had become.
Yeah, I think it's very true.
Mm.
And it also just foreshadows a lot of beautiful stuff for Fives that I don't want to spoil. But
oh my God, Fives, man.
Him coming to awareness before Rex that maybe they shouldn't always be following the Jedi, and maybe there is maybe people don't have the best interests of the clones at heart is just so heartbreaking.
Also, do you think that something I never really fully processed, and maybe it's just supposed to be ambiguous. Do you think that Krell made up that Palpatine had asked for Anakin? Do you think that like Palpatine knew that Krell was evil and like set this up? Do you because like the whole thing is that like Krell shows up and is like, you are needed back on Coruscant urgently by order of Emperor Palpatine. And like obviously Palpatine and Anakin are chummy, but like,
yeah.
Do you think this is Palpatine's grand plan? Do you think the Krell just saw an opportunity and took it?
So I absolutely think it was Palpatine's grand plan. To create a situation for Anakin where his clones were harmed by someone who was going further than Anakin would have.
Yeah.
I certainly don't think Krell knew that Palpatine is Sidious. So I don't think Krell revealed himself. I think Palpatine Sidious probably sensed the dark side in Krell, and that was part of why he wanted to send him. I don't think he realized how far gone he was. And I don't think that him and Krell were like, mwahaha, here's
that would make sense. Like Palpatine, like more expected a result of like Krell will get more of Anakin's troops killed, and it will anger Anakin, and it will like push Anakin farther down. But like Palpatine got way more of his money's worth for that,
right? It will leave the clones distrustful of the Jedi, and thus help set up Order 66 in some ways. And yeah, because I think for Krell to make this up, he talks to Obi-Wan a couple of times. And Obi-Wan would have been like, wait, why isn't Anakin there?
Yeah.
Unless there's some good reason. And I think Anakin is so committed to the 501st that if there was a single reason to think that maybe this order wasn't legitimate, he would have figured it out fast.
And Obi-Wan didn't really question what Krell was doing either at any point. I think Obi-Wan was involved in his own shit, but like, I think that Obi-Wan trusted Krell. So clearly Krell was still a trusted Jedi during this entire thing.
Right.
I don't know. It is very interesting. These episodes just kind of speak to a lot of different like political things and ethical conundrums. But it was kind of funny that like Dogma is someone we just never seen and never see again, but he's the one that ends up putting Krell down in the end because he just felt so used and betrayed. Yeah. And it's almost that feeling of like, as you all know, I can't be very political because of my job, but basically, like, I'm going to try and talk, you all can put the dots together, but like, if a leader tells you one thing and tells you, I'm going to do this for you, we're going to do this, I have your best interest in mind, and then turns his back on you and ends up getting you killed or leaves you in prison or just like abandons you, it screws you in some way, you feel really just like a fool. You feel embarrassed, like an idiot, basically. You're like, I trusted this person, I put my faith in them, and then they did not have my best interest at heart. Like, I was lied to, I feel betrayed. And like you could see on Dogma's face, you could see it was just like him processing, like, I thought I was following orders, thought I was doing the right thing, and this is what it led me. You lied to me. Like, but he's mad at Krell, but he's really mad at himself. And he's mad at like choosing to believe in this, and it makes the other clones again question like this war more. It makes Fives really question the war. And it leads a lot of our characters down really interesting paths. I mean, if you think about like, for those who know the entire Clone Wars, where Rex ends up, where Jesse ends up, where Fives ends up, it's very interesting how those are the three main people here and like where their paths diverge to from this point.
Yeah, no, I think that's good. I think we're definitely gonna like hold on to that for a little while longer, and we'll talk about where that goes in future episodes.
Yeah, but I will. Unless you have more to say, Matthew.
No, go ahead.
The last thing I'm going to say is just one of my favorite things to come out of these episodes, though, is just that everyone's like, yeah, Palpatine sucks and, Vader's evil and Maul. Oh, yeah, everyone's. But when you ask a Clone Wars or Star Wars fan, who's the most evil motherfucker in all of Star Wars? The first name that comes up is Pong fucking Krell. They're like, Pong Krell, that little shit. He is the most evil. No one forgives Pong Krell. People can make arguments for Anakin. People can make arguments here and there. Like, oh, Maul was doing this and and Dooku had this. Pong Krell is just a dick and just for no reason. Like, screw you, man. Leave my clones alone.
Yeah, I think it's because they're so beloved. I think it's because, and this is, I think you're totally right about where Dogma was coming from. They're kind of children in a lot of ways. And I think this is something about why, former soldiers are often so angry at the generals who lead them into terrible things. And you see that a lot in politics and from all political sides. There has to be so much trust for something like that to work. And I think a kind of a problem of it, and we've definitely seen this in our own world, is that when you have these authority figures who are betraying the trust of those who put everything in them, all of their peers assume they're all trustworthy. So like they never kind of, like you said, Obi-Wan isn't kind of keeping an eye out to see if Krell is actually treating these clones right. He's like, yeah, he's a Jedi. He must be fine. Kind of like people can be like, oh yeah, he's another teacher. He must be fine. Or he's another priest. He must be fine.
It's like when I'm gonna get a little political. It's like when kids blindly trust people of authority, whether it's police officers or just like, priests or just men in power. And we've seen men in power abuse that and end up abusing children through multiple sex scandals in the church, or police taking advantage of people, or just like being violent towards them. It's that very classic trope of like, I'm going to blindly trust you because like you were my general. I am a, I am so young, I'm so new or whatever. And you are supposed to be experienced, wise, sage. Like you're a Jedi. You were supposed to be the pinnacle, the best of us. And you do this. And it's just this destroying feeling of like, if we can't trust a Jedi, who the fuck can we trust?
Yeah.
And then we can't trust each other either now. Jesus. Like it is a dark episode. Dark episodes, man. Whoever says this is a kid show needs to go watch this.
Right? And if I remember, the Republic Commando books were written before this show was finished.
I think you're correct.
So I don't think it comes up there, but I think there are some books where it's talking about clones and sort of why did they go along with Order 66, and yes, the chip, but also like their bitterness against the Jedi. And I remember there being at least one work, I have no idea what it was offhand, so if someone does, please remind me, but where they talk about, what happened with General Krell. And it's like they weren't in the 501st, they were in a different unit, but they heard about it, and it's part of the kind of like, wait, do you really think that are the Jedi really capable of what Palpatine is saying they were? And someone else is like, well, you heard about Krell, right?
I remember this. Yeah, it's just like it just shows more distrust. I mean, it is a genius addition overall to the lore of Star Wars to have this Krell character.
Yeah, I think it's a great addition to that, and we don't know this honestly, but I think whether directly or because he just engineered things that he knew something like this would happen, that one of the generals would break, it is such the perfect thing for Palpatine to have set up in terms of creating that literal childlike trust that the clones have in the Jedi, and then breaking it, which is going to make it so much easier for him to then, further break it with Order 66. So, well, I'm looking forward to talking a lot more about that as we go forward with the Clone Wars, but we are now going to shift gears because in a couple of weeks, Maul Shadow Lord is going to be coming out, and we want to do some primers. So we're going to do some stuff on where Maul has appeared in other literature. We're going to do just a straight up primer, which is going to be if you haven't seen every episode that Maul has been in of animation, if you haven't kind of known like what's happening with Maul at the time this show happens, here's going to be the primer. We're going to get you fully up to speed. And then we'll be doing week by week coverage, sometimes 2 a week, of Maul the Shadow Lord as it comes out. So please be excited for that. Check all that out. I'm going to have myself and Alex. Thank you all so much for listening. We have spoken.
Stay classy, Umbara.